Oh no, my name. Wait, let me change my name. That's
Recording in
not.
Becky
progress.
Barton.
God damn it.
Becky
Sorry.
Barton, she, her. The host of the podcast is Becky Barton, she, her.
I'm leaving this in. Okay, it's there we go. I can't change the pronouns, but that's close enough. She, they. It's close
You're
enough.
like, today's pronouns of the day are brought to you by she, her.
Okay. Now I'm gonna pretend that happened, but I probably will edit it back in because it's funny. Well, hello there. I am Taylor, and you are listening to the Surviving Maine podcast. With me, as always, my beautiful co-host, George. How are you, George?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. Good to see you both.
Yes, and our special guest, he is one of the many camera people on season 4 of Surviving Maine. He's the winner of season 3, and he runs our TikTok channel. It's
Sure
Matt.
does.
Matt, how are you?
Oh, hey, I'm good. Just hanging out here in the Windy City. You got the skyline in the background. We're
Yes.
we're all sponsored by a blur filter today.
Yes, George couldn't take off his blur filter, so we all decided to blur our backgrounds.
I felt the love.
So mysterious.
So we're talking about episode 8.
Are we there already?
I know, right?
Episode 8. 8 of how many?
Either 14 or 15. I'm not sure yet because I just found out that Survivor 40 Several starts September 18th.
Oh, cool.
And
Oh, yeah, that was announced today.
I thought it was going to be a week after that. And so I don't know if I'm going to have our season end the day before or a week after Real Survivor. We'll find out.
We added in an ominous double elimination episode. It's like this week, 2 of you will go home, and everyone's like, "Who said
Voice over it.
that?" Yeah,
How you been, Matt?
I've been pretty good surviving. How have you all been?
You know, Taylor and I, we just don't leave these video conferencing. We just carry this through
Yeah,
our
I
work
saw that the Google
days.
meeting's been going on for like 7 weeks or something. That's crazy.
Yeah, we're trying to do a world record here.
Are
But
you using the same browser?
episode 8, I think things are starting to heat up a little bit. The
Yes.
players are starting to emerge. The big guns are starting to come out. But we start with a snore, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
start
That
with
was nothing. That was nothing compared to night 1, season
John.
3,
Yeah.
Miko
who was
tribe.
your snorer?
Just John. Just like it was he just
Oh,
once though. I think it was just one 8-hour snore.
I gotta tell you, it's a deterrent for me to apply for Survivor because I am a snorer, and I just it's my biggest fear. As a kid, I would go to Boy Scout camp, and I would, it would be a big room of like 12-year-old boys, and I would wake up with everyone's shit thrown at me. I'd have
Wow,
shoes, I'd have bags, I'd have
that is
it just
traumatic.
people just trying to get through the night without killing me. So I take that as a cue that sleeping among a big group of people, I'll just plan these things. I don't need to play.
Maybe your personal item could be like a nose strip or something.
Yeah.
My CPAP machine. If I'm gonna ask for
Yeah,
a
I feel like that if you can make a fire, you could just sleep elsewhere, or you could be the person that takes care of the fire all night. I didn't even sleep in the group because everybody was like so huddled together, it was so hot. I was outside most of the night anyway, so I think I did snore, but it just wasn't as loud as John.
Yeah. So Zach's little cute little snore was no
Yeah,
big deal.
that just was setting
right.
the scene. They're waking up. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful day in Maine. Everyone's comfy. I think
I
that's what the
Well,
vibe was from Zach.
yeah.
let's talk about Zach's game for a second. What is your impression of Zach's game, Taylor, so far up to this point? What would you say?
I like Zach. I think the way he starts out, he's kind of like underdog status a little bit, even though he's in this tribe that keeps winning, and he's feeling really good about that. And I find that really charming about him, that he was like, that this isn't like what my strengths, this isn't what I do. I'm not used to being outdoors and being like sporty or like, doing challenges. And I'm like, oh, Zach, I want to give you a hug. And then, he finds that idol, and he's like, kind of turns into like an evil like, not that he's evil, but you know what I mean, like now he's
Found his
suddenly
in.
villainous. Yeah.
He found his in, and he found a little wiggle room that he could be a little villainous. And I think that was, I don't know, I'm not speaking for him, but maybe was a little bit of a goal going in. Some people want to
Mm-hmm.
check that box off, that they do something, overtly villainous. Um, he to me, what I like about Zach is his vulnerability and his desire to, not desire, but he's okay with just being vulnerable, and he's okay with saying, look, I grew up, I had this issue growing up, and I'm trying to, I feel like Zach is learning right now. Zach is in a big learning period in his life. And I think that this game, and he played what, one other, I believe.
Yeah, was it Millennium Park, I want to say? I'm not
I
Hmm.
sure.
don't, I don't
Yeah,
know
it
how he
was, I
did,
think.
but I know he's a good player, and I know he wants to play more of these things.
I think it's interesting where like at the beginning of the game when tribes do really well, like as a viewer, it's often like seen as like forgettable or like you don't have much drama early on. But like the longer you get into the game without having to like cause any like people to be upset with you, like you actually are doing really well. And so I feel like we didn't get to really see so much of Zach, but then we got to see him grab that idol. And then I think he surprised himself with his physical challenges, and then he surprised himself with getting an advantage early, and so now he's like, oh, maybe I can play this game. And so it's like a good
Yes.
time as it's like after swap where like we're kind of getting to see him think a little bit more, and I'm excited to see like where it goes from here, because his confessionals have had like a nice growth to them of like starting out kind of like excited but worried to more like confident and like planning stuff out.
Yeah.
Do you see any of yourself in him, in your
Yeah, we
game,
had
in
a
the
really
way
fun
you play?
chat. We had a fun chat like a month or so after the game online where we both like liked each other's games that we got to see of them and like chatting and stuff, and it was really fun. I think that he's somebody who, like Yugal said, comes off like really strong in some areas and like really like ally related in other areas, because he doesn't come off as a huge threat. Like he's somebody you want to work with because he's like smart, but then also like not like the biggest threat in any area right off the bat. And so I think that's something I related to, where like I kind of naturally am self-deprecating, but not in a self-hatred way. It's just kind of like a like approachable way, and I see a lot of that in him. And I see that he did that kind of similarly, where he was like, well, somebody's already on my case previous to this episode. Like, let's use that as a way to kind of make some allies and be a little like lost puppy for a second type of thing. And that worked really well for him. And I mean, this episode, we don't get to see much of him because it kind of turned into the other tribe, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see going forward what happens.
He has like a plan, it seems like he's like he
Yeah.
could work with the moose heads, but and he's talks about talking with them. And then he also like Allison is now his number one. He, I don't think, knows that Allison is Dave's number one,
Yeah.
Allison is TJ's number one, Allison was Shane's
Yeah.
number one.
But he is working with the right people. Like he
Yeah.
has an idea of like where people are with like the limited info he has, and he's like wanting to like work with people. Like there's a conversation that Allison is saying like we could work with TJ, like possibly. So like he's already kind of getting like the benefits of what he was hoping for with his last couple of like rounds. And so I
Mhm.
think it's a good time to start turning stuff on. Like I feel like sometimes people do it too late, and I think Swap Tribe is really a good time to start doing stuff and making moves for later on. So
That's what
So,
you did. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, true.
talking about
I'm
like
like, that's such a good move. Who would have thought that? That's so funny.
talk, talking about perception, Matt. You got to observe these people. You got to see them sign in. You got to see them sit there and kind of,
Yeah.
size each other up. And you got to size them up a little bit yourself. So
Yeah.
just based on your perception from like what you observed going into the day, into the game, into the first day, and now watching these episodes back, who has surprised you the most out of everybody that you've taken in, so to speak?
I was telling this to Taylor. I think that TJ surprised me at how self-aware he is because he's like so many fun qualities of a good player, but like self-aware is not like something that a kind of jester person like really gives off. And like him and I are similar in that way, where like we constantly are so excited that stuff just is fun, even if we're stressed. And so that can like really, as somebody who like plays poker, like that aids him a lot. I think where like you get a free poker face when you're laughing and giggling the whole time. And so that's kind of something that I didn't think that with that would come him actually knowing what was going on so far. So that was cool to see.
So there's a visual of speaking of TJ that as I was watching the episode, I cracked up because, and maybe you can like do a little insert when you air this, but he walks over and he kind of feels like his goose is cooked and he's a little sad and he's got his little blue hoodie on with his little blue hood and he kind of walks over and he just kind of to Adam, and he's just kind of like, well, I know it just came across. He just looked like sadness from inside out to me. He was just so
Oh,
glum. He was just so with even and the blue hood
yeah.
on. He was just like
Sadness or embarrassment? Which one?
a little cross of the two. But then it was at the very beginning of the episode, they're talking about the Maddie vote out and um, how that was something that they decided on the walkover. Which reminded me that on CBS there's a gag order. Nobody can talk on that walk because they want everything to come
Yeah,
out at tribal council. I guess we
Yeah.
didn't have that sort of wrangler sort of thing
never.
where
Yeah.
it was shut down. Some games do it, some games don't do it. But I think in this situation, and for the purpose of editing, um, it's probably very stressful on an editor to have all of this stuff leading to one thing, and then this one little conversation on a walk over to tribal council changes the whole trajectory of the
And
outcome of
it's
the episode.
not recorded. Like
And
stuff
it's not recorded.
that happens in Matt's season, same thing. Like Matt did a
That
few
happened that happened a
off
lot in
camera.
my
Yeah.
season.
Matt
I
kept
was trying to
doing
hold my
shit.
tongue. I was trying to hold my tongue while you were speaking, George, because I was like the walk to tribal was like the only time I ever like played game last season. And like it just wasn't like unless it was when I showed up and I was baked, but I didn't hear anybody ever say we couldn't do that. And so when other
No,
people
you can.
weren't doing that, okay, cool, sweat. Because I was like, other people were just like stressed right before. And I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people in these games, like that's the time when they're not like the time that everybody starts to get stressed is when they're kind of like, oh, nobody actually cares about like what I look like right now or like what I'm doing. So that's kind of the time where you can like catch people off guard. And you can also like just look like you're stressed too without worry of like getting in trouble for it. And so the whole rest of the game is when you're trying to like be calm and look stoic. And then that's the point where you're allowed to ask stuff and see what people give you in those last seconds. And so I think that people who are using those moments are like really smart in these circumstances because
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
lot of people aren't really able to hide their true feelings in those moments. You can kind of just be like, what are you doing? And they're like, ah.
There are times that players use production against itself in a situation where if something's not covered, you can take advantage of it. And if
Yeah.
we are not locking down conversations on the way to tribal council, and you realize that it's not being monitored, more
Yeah.
power to you. That's smart. That's why you wound up. Part of the reason why you wound up winning was assimilating to the hand that you were
Mm.
dealt, as opposed to trying to create things that were, uh,
Yeah.
not really realistic.
True. And I could see how people like Sandra and Adam, like I believe them when they say like they decided it for sure then. I think what you don't get to hear in that is like because of that, you don't get to have a side conversation where they talk about if they should tell Seth because you're on the way to tribal. You can't pull somebody aside one on one and be like, hey, should we go tell Seth the thing that we just got told privately on the way here a second ago? Like, so those things, like, they obviously showed that they did not fully trust Seth, but they also might have had a conversation separately earlier if it was brought up to them then that really allowed them to just have a, oh, we should obviously tell Seth, like and that sometimes doesn't happen. So it's interesting what causes a ricochet in those moments up to it. And a lot of people can use those to be like, okay, you're locking in with me right before tribal, but it is something completely different than what they told other people.
Yeah, and I think that they banked on Seth just kind of letting it roll off his shoulders, and
Yeah.
that he wasn't actually playing as hard as he may have been, even though he was very quiet and stoic throughout the whole thing. But
Mhm.
he called, like he said,
Yeah.
he Seth's Mad Seth was a little scary.
I love
Yeah. It's
Uh,
Mad
like, don't
Seth.
wake
I
daddy. Don't
loved
wake
Mad
daddy.
Seth too, but I give Seth a lot of credit because he
He did
handled
great.
that like
Yeah.
a gentleman. He
Hmm.
handled it well. And the only time a feeling came out about it was when prodded by Liza at Tribal Council. When
Yeah.
Liza
Yeah.
was
True.
like repeated the same question. Like, you didn't answer my
Nice.
question, Seth. What's the answer here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it that was getting something out of Seth, even though Seth started playing the game. He
Hmm.
realized that he had to keep playing or start playing rather, and I think we saw Seth come alive in this episode a little bit.
Yeah, I think Seth has been playing since before this
Yeah,
because he's talking with Maddie about getting Sandra out, but he's lying. He was lying before this and saying I never said anything. Like more like a lie by omission because he was agreeing, but just because he didn't say it out loud. Well, you don't say much, Seth. Of course you didn't say that, right? But he was agreeing, so he was already lying. And then for him to know, like, I can't let Sandra know that I feel betrayed right now. But to be proud and be like, yeah, a bit of a betrayal. And then he's in the
yeah.
voting booth and he's like, you betrayed me. Now I betray you.
Yeah. Wait. What was the words he said? There was no loyalty there. I was like,
Yes.
that was a good quote, Seth.
Yeah.
And you, what did you title him?
Revenge of the
Wait,
Seth.
Revenge of the
Revenge of the
Seth,
Seth.
which
That is
was
awesome.
brilliant.
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting because he has been playing this whole time, but you can see his like at the start of the game he wanted to play it really cut and dry, so he didn't really have to question anything. Like it was similar to how Andy played a lot of last game, which made a
Mm.
lot of sense. Where it was like when you have the upper hand and like like what you should be doing, like it really doesn't make a lot of sense to like just do crazy stuff. And so I think that Seth was trying to do that along the way as far as he could, and he's like at this point now where he's like, wait, stuff's happening, and it actually doesn't fully make righteous sense on like either side of what to do because the loyalty to one is showing that they're having more honest conversations, but they're not there with the same conversations about loyalty. So it's just interesting because it's like, do you value the people you're with for a long time that have one strike against them, but it kind of makes sense, but you're not fully sure because you don't actually like go back in time and see what happened, or do you start scratch with like kind of newer people that just showed that they're open to newer things and like want to start scratch too. So it's interesting to see him like learn as he's playing, but then also not be able to play the same strategy that you go in with, which is like what he was kind of able to do for a little while.
and it was good TV. I'm enjoying watching
Yeah,
Seth.
it was
I
fun.
enjoyed
Yeah,
watching
he's
him
awesome.
out there. He was a gem to production. He was just the nicest guy in the world to
Yeah, he's
us.
cool.
And he when Amelia was going through her episode during the challenge, he stepped up. He
Yeah.
was, calm, made sure everything went right because he has a background as
Yeah,
a
She's
paramedic.
fun. Yeah.
So, he was somebody who uh I felt was having like the best time. Didn't quite know what to make of what was happening.
yeah,
It seemed like a lot bigger than he anticipated. But watching him assimilate is a lot of the enjoyment of this season for me is watching Seth navigate this game. He's a good guy. And then on the flip side, we have Adam.
I was gonna
Uh,
say, then there's Adam. Like same level of entertainment, right?
he keeps a burn list. Adam keeps a burn list.
I love it.
I enjoy Adam. I've been vocal about my support for Adam since the beginning of this. I'm curious, Matt, what your take is on Adam so far.
I think he's fun. I mean, I think so far he's done a really good job of like maintaining his threat level, and you see him like be aware of it too. Like this episode, there was some confessionals talking about how like he's really glad that if he did something like crazy last episode, it was with Sandra, because now she's kind of getting the flack for it. And so it's fun to see somebody who like just generally comes off like they would have a big threat level also be able to manage it, because he like wasn't really in trouble this episode despite being like on the people who got their wrists slapped, you know? Like it was really just like, Adam and Sandra, that was crazy. Adam, we'll see you next round, and Sandra, go home. You know, like it really was crazy like how that happened, because they're all like, oh, you both were so evil last
Yeah.
round. I can't believe Sandra has to die now, Adam. You know, like it was
Yeah.
really crazy.
And it was
So
Adam's idea. Adam was the one
yeah,
pushing it.
yeah,
Wild.
I think I think Adam is extraordinarily self-aware.
yeah.
And I think that it's coming across in his assessments. I mean, even though his plans didn't come to fruition for the round, this was for me. This was his episode because his power trip from just kind of the previous vote is a lot of fun to watch because
Mm.
he's getting a little looser
Yeah.
and you know and but he's admitting it. He's admitting he's on a John Carroll power trip. He's
Yeah.
admitting it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
But
too,
his
when like you're on the bottom, like you really want to just like have some fun with it too. So like I like that he was at
yeah,
least like, okay, well let's like be goofy this round, if nothing else, you know.
but the contrast between him and PJ and the fist bump trilogy, which
Yeah.
is the MVP of this episode. Um, just because by the third fist bump, I love TJ, I'm sorry, but by the third fist bump and how like over it Adam was, and it was like he didn't even close his hand to do the fist bump. It was like an open hand wet fist bump. It was like and
Michelangelo and
it was
Jesus or
accompanied
whatever.
by a like he didn't even like he went
He did.
and I fucking fell out. That to me like because in that moment what he really wanted to say would never have made air. Or maybe it would have in this not on CBS though.
There
But
was
it was
one
just funny.
quote where he was just like, I hate that.
I hate
he
Yes.
was,
that.
he was just like, oh, I hate that.
I thought he
No,
was
when he
referring to the whole thing of TJ just being like, I'm voting out your tightest ally. Like,
Well, that was so funny to me because TJ was like, well, if anybody wants to talk to me, I am just going to be 3 feet away on the ground instead of like.
seriously.
And
and
that
then
was
Adam
so me. It was like I am going to be
Yeah,
listening, but I am going to be sitting in the shade.
and then Adam took like 2 beats and he went with like an incredulous laugh. He was like, "Put him out." It was just so matter of fact. Let's put him out. It
it
was
was
just
It was
so
so.
so
funny.
funny.
It was
So
so
funny.
mob boss
And
right
they
there in
started
that
the
moment.
episode too. They started the episode too being like, "Hey, let's just make sure we're good because we probably need each other later." And then they were like, "We're so annoyed at each other."
Yeah. I was, watching this with Becky so she can give me notes on what to change. And she was like, the first time TJ gives Adam the fist bump, me and Becky hang out with TJ a lot because he lives here in Long Beach. And she was
Yeah.
like, you can't do that. That's really mean. You can't have that sound effect. And I was like,
No, it's
you're
fun.
right. It's so mean. But then I was like, babe, but it's gonna happen 2 more times in this episode, and then it's gonna happen again in another episode. Like,
It was good. We
Chef's
loved that.
kiss.
I
It
love the
was.
sound effects.
I ended up texting TJ like, please forgive me, but
That's
you're not gonna
awesome.
like episode 8.
He
So
seems to be a
there's a
good
little
sport.
behind the scenes
He
thing
is.
that I wanna bring up.
Ooh.
Yeah. So Ozzy, the Liza, the dog. Everybody loved this dog, and uh, uh, one of the things that was difficult to control and was important to Liza was keeping Ozzy at bay
Yeah.
during challenges, during tribal councils, during this, during that. And the help wasn't there. There was a promise of help, and the help wasn't there for that. So Ozzy kept getting into the shots, and it was like, and Liza was getting annoyed at it because we strive as producers of these things to replicate CBS as much as possible. We want to give the players the most authentic experience we possibly can that's as close to the real thing. But then we got to talking about it, and Andy and I. And we said, you know what? Ozzy's running around. Ozzy's part of this. Ozzy's part of Surviving Maine. If Ozzy happens to walk by tribal council, Ozzy's in there.
Yeah.
Ozzy's like
In this
Mark the
episode.
chicken,
Yeah, Margaret Chicken.
you know, or what else can I pull out? Pelican Pete from Survivor Pearl Islands. Wow. All
Pearl
right.
Islands, yeah.
So yeah,
Michelle and final tribal councils. If they just
that's
have
right.
to be there.
So I think Liza came around to the idea of this is Surviving Maine. Ozzy is definitely part of Surviving Maine. The cast, the crew, everybody knew Ozzy. Let Ozzy run around. I mean, of course, keep Ozzy at bay during uh challenges. You don't want that. But I had this, we were trying to come up with like fun little twists and asides and rewards and whatever. And because Ozzy was running all over the place, I was like, let's just put an idol on Ozzy's collar. And if one of the
Oh
players
my
happens
God.
to just sort of pet Ozzy, here's this little advantage in Ozzy's collar. And we thought about it for a second, and I was like, eh? Yeah. So it was like a
God.
momentary, should we? And then no. But so Liza came around, and I think if this continues, I think we'll see more of Ozzy in these
Yeah,
things.
I don't remember if it's already happened or if it's in a later episode. I was like looking at my notes, but Ozzy starts like eating someone's cell phone during tribal council.
That I don't remember.
I don't remember. It, it's like when.
It's
Oh
probably
no,
Kaya's.
I know exactly when it is. It's the next episode. Uh, it does not make the edit, but now you know in case I forget to say it during the next, because it's like at a pivotal moment when something's happening, and then Will is like, Ozzy's eating my phone. Can you make him stop? And we have to like pause everything.
There is a table of chargers or something that had everybody's phones on them, so that I can like picture where that would have been.
So Sandra, she played an aggressive game.
Mm-hmm.
She was a she was a threat to everybody there. I didn't know Sandra going into this game. I didn't even know that she had played other games. But since this game, Sandra has gone on to great things in this
Mm-hmm.
community. She is was a huge standout and won what do you
Angelica.
call it? Angelica.
Yeah.
Um, and played a kick-ass game with equally great Jared Roth, who's very good in these games. You know, Sandra surprised me because I asked you the question, Matt, of what was your perception of these folks when Sandra was someone I immediately like counted out, and that has nothing to do with age or it was just like this. She played the game so well that I didn't see her for 1 second as a threat, just
Oh.
from talking to her
Mm.
because I didn't hear any before, like interviews leading up to the game, none of that. So I just observed, and she is so good at the game that she kind of disappears, but at the same time is playing a hugely strategic in your face game. It's almost scary how good she is. I mean, she got voted out this episode, but
Right.
she is good. She's a formidable opponent
I
for
think
sure.
there were just so many mistakes that she made, and it seems as though she learned from these mistakes because she ends
Yes.
up winning the next game she plays. But for her to expect Amelia to trust her when she has given Amelia absolutely nothing is just bewildering to me. Like, what,
Yeah.
you really think Amelia's supposed to trust you? What? Why? You're just telling her what to do, and oftentimes telling her the wrong thing on purpose. Like, what?
That's because she had the wrong read on Amelia. I think that
Okay.
she felt like she can, maybe steamroll over her because
Yeah.
Amelia comes off as agreeable and
Yeah.
sweet, but Amelia is playing a fire game. Like, and
Yes.
just another one I didn't at all see coming. And Amelia's playing a great game, and it's so much more aggressive than I remember or saw.
The way that she is trying to make sure that she's going to be okay no matter which way this vote goes is just beautiful to watch. And the way that she's protecting TJ and he's fucking blowing it by being chaotic and weird is so annoying. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I even put I even put, on her Chiron, working so hard to clean up TJ's mess because she's like lying so well. She's a really good liar, lying to
Yeah.
Sandra about all this stuff. Like, oh, he's not voting for you. He's talking about voting out Seth. That's what we want to do. And then if 3 seconds later, I'm voting for Sandra. Come sit with me over here.
Yeah, it's interesting because Amelia, I think, was one of like probably the strongest players this round because she does a really good job of like she knows exactly where on the totem pole she is. And she's
Yes.
like, well, as long as I'm actually not voted out, it doesn't really matter where I am. And she's been kind of doing that most of this game so far. Like she was like, I can't really choose that. Like Didi gave me that idol. I can't really choose that I have to play it right now. But each time she's had like some pretty critical rounds, she's had a really good neutral face and she was very calm for both of those rounds. And we saw that this episode where she doesn't ever actually look like she's going to get voted out because she's just consistently talking game with the people trying to vote her out and she's like making sense to them and so they don't really want to get her out and so you see people like Sandra who like can see that Amelia doesn't fully want to work with her but she still doesn't really have a better option because Amelia did just work with her and now the numbers are flipped and like it's like Sandra's like oh this is like annoying because like I do think like if nothing else prior to last round like this last round did seem like something that I would want to work with Sandra after if Sandra and Adam like help me out there
Yeah.
because they don't have the best reason to go for like Madison besides actually like just wanting to do it
Yeah.
and like capitalize on it, which like makes sense, but like the numbers have to land with you. And Amelia did a really good job of making Sandra think they would. And then when they weren't with her,
Yeah.
then she was like, sorry, they're not there. And the only unfortunate part that is I think Sandra really like she could see that after this round she would need an idol versus like where I had an idol and I played it really quick. No matter what happened, like if it flopped, I was still going to be good because the people I had with me, like they weren't against me right then.
Yep.
And Sandra tried to get to where she was that round so she wouldn't have to play her idol. So to see it kind of like she doesn't fully know if Amelia's with her because she still hasn't been like, haha, gotcha. Now the numbers are on our side. Amelia knows to still kind of keep it neutral so that at the last second, if Sandra has an idol, she's going to want to save it instead of play it. So I think it was less of a bad move on Sandra and more of a really good move on Amelia because
Yeah.
Sandra would
Yeah.
have needed it. You know, like Sandra would have needed it next round. And regardless of if it's merge or not, she's going to need that because everybody now is vocally TJ against her. You know, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts if Sandra needs it. Like I almost think that TJ flop like there's no poker face with TJ if he just puts down his cards and yells at the person, you know? And that's I think that's something that you do recognize if you don't like you don't have to waste a whole round trying to hide what you're doing if you're just like this is what I'm doing, now everybody else deal with it. And that is something that sometimes you get to do. So I don't know. It was a really interesting round because I don't think anybody played bad. But you see Seth like
Mm-hmm.
there's like 3 swing votes in a round of 5 people. It's like so interesting.
So Matt, let's say you're TJ in this position up to this point, 9 lives, surviving all these tribal councils. What do you think if you were TJ, your chances were of winning this game at this point?
I think I like if I'm TJ, I don't know. There's a point in my game last game where I was like, there's no way I'm getting to the end, but if I do get to the end, I have a game to say. And like that's a point for a lot of these people already in this game. And I think that's like a product of 3 tribes to start, is that there's like enough friction that you had a game before merge. I think TJ's kind of at the point where he's like, I know I can sell myself, and if I just look like I can't until I can, like that sometimes is the way to do it. And so you kind of have like if he walked around really calm for the first time this whole game and been like, okay, Sandra, let's try to figure something out. No, they'd be like, no, you know, like we
Yeah.
can't like dog on him every round. You have to work with what you have each round and then go
Yes.
with it. And so like sometimes that really is just doubling down on what you're giving them. And if that's making a loud statement, sitting down and taking a break, sometimes it would have been worse if he overplayed. So I don't know. I don't know. I think he has a good shot still, but I also don't. I see less and less paths, but then you only really need one. So
Well, what would be your path moving forward if you were TJ? at this point?
If I
Who
if
would
I was
you vote with?
TJ, if I was TJ, I
Knowing
would
like thinking emerges like on the horizon.
yeah, I would give a nice high five to Amelia and be like, that was such a cool thing we just did. Like, let's figure out how to go forward. And then Amelia would hopefully figure out who they should work with next, that type of thing.
Leave it to Amelia to figure out.
And that, I mean, that was me last year when I had Delaney. I was like, I don't know him. Like, I don't like you pick. Like, and that's something you get to do when everybody gets kind of chopped out. And so, like Delaney, I remember really liked Jess, and I didn't know her that much, and I kept voting against her, but I still was kind of like excited to work with her because people are like, "Oh, let's work with Matt," and so you just need one person that you had a fun move with to be like, "Oh my God, TJ's over here, and he doesn't know what the f's going on," and he does, but so.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this was funny drama because it's not. But I remember I got home and I messaged you and I was like, "Can you tell me what type of tent you had?" And you said, "Sure, let me get back to you." And I hear 3 episodes now you talking about how great your tent is, and I look at my messages and you never told me what kind you had. So whatever gate you're keeping, I would love to know what brand it was.
Sure. I'll hit you up after this. Fast
Yeah, I've
forward a
heard
year
that
from
one
now.
before, George.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you will. Just kidding.
Fast forward a year from now. Listen, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. It's
Yeah,
a special
you're
tent.
like you'd be buried underneath the tent.
Hmm. No, I just want it to be as far away from the ground as possible. Therefore, I had a tent that was like a foot off the ground with a
I don't
platform, and
understand how that works. Like, how
It was
much
so
was
cool. It just
it?
had a prop. It had a prop. It
it
was
was
like a
like
floor
I think it was
plus
like
prop.
The deck.
$250, something
Ooh.
like that. Too close to three. I don't remember
Like a
exactly.
Was
two-person
it
tent?
was it
Yeah.
like a cot
Okay.
with a prop top, or was it like
No, it was just it was had a platform that expanded, and then you put
mm,
an air mattress on top of the platform, and then
yeah,
it just
it was
had
cool.
zippers all over the place.
Mm.
Yeah, it's in. You want it? Come get it.
I
Feel it.
do. I'm gonna
I've
break into your house.
You don't have to break in. I'll give it to you. I'll hand it to
Mm-mm.
you. You
I'm
don't have
breaking
to
in,
break and
George.
enter.
I'm breaking in.
Goodness gracious.
You guys are so weird.
Uh,
Speaking of weirdos, Adam in this episode, I found so funny. Like, George has been talking up Adam this whole time, and I was like, I don't know if I see it, but when we got to this episode, his confessionals, he just really came alive, and I was like, who is this charismatic fellow that I just love now? He was so fun because he was like, I just did this thing, and now it's awkward at camp. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, he's really
Came
funny.
alive.
Yeah, he was cool. It's fun seeing him like start shit and then getting to see everybody get annoyed by it because it's just like that is a fun part. Like this is a game where you're allowed to like be annoying on purpose, and like so people who are probably like told they're annoying throughout their life get to like be congratulated for it, and that's like something I really enjoy personally.
Oh. Really? People think you're annoying? I don't get it.
Yeah, but imagine you didn't get me in like doses. Like imagine you just like had to be here.
Okay, yeah, I haven't hung out with you for hours on end,
Yeah, like it's fun
aside
when we
from,
hang out because we're like, oh my God, we get to see each other. But if you were
yeah.
like, I don't know, in a cubicle next to me or something, or like forced to sit next to me in class, that'd be
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I can't imagine that.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot.
That's no fun.
Who are our favorite people in this point? I don't even remember if Merge comes next, to be honest. But we're getting, I mean, episode 8 is halfway ish through the season, right?
Yeah. Spoiler alert, Merge comes next.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
it's exciting.
So you got Sandra, who was voted out and learned from her mistakes and went on to win Angelica.
I love you,
Um,
Sandra.
if Sandra, and I know Sandra loves playing these things, winning is a double-edged sword. If you want to continue playing, every single game you go into moving forward, you're going in with a painted target immediately because you're a winner. And people watched your game. They have firsthand knowledge of how you play.
She
So
She
was on
almost won again.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, she almost
she
just won again.
almost,
Yeah.
yeah.
How far did she get? Like Final
Like
Four?
no, the
Final
end. She
Three?
got to the end. Yeah.
Jesus.
She's a
Sandra.
baddie. She's a baddie. Yeah, I chatted with her after the game, and it was so fun because we had only like met once prior or something, and she was like obviously super bummed that it didn't work, but we were like kind of on the same page that like from what she had known, I was like, I don't think I would have played it. I think it really was just like
The idol.
feeling confident and like needing it, and like taking that risk. And it's like a bummer when that risk doesn't land because you're like, well, now I look stupid, you know? And I don't think it was stupid. It's just a bummer when like you don't even get any chance to like be like, oh, I don't. It's just like you're out, and that's the brutal part of Survivor, you know?
She was so down on herself, like so stupid, so stupid. But I think you're right that I don't know that it's ever
Obviously, it makes sense
stupid.
now to play it, but
Sure,
that's like
yeah.
never an option. You can't.
In that I mean, but although I mean, she just fucked over this guy, like, and betrayed him, and she
I know.
wait, because this was my favorite tribal. I'm editing it there, just like watching it for the first time. She has the ovaries to say, "Oh, we didn't betray. I didn't betray
I
Seth."
know that
My
was rough.
jaw
That was rough.
dropped.
That
I
was
couldn't
rough.
believe, like, you're
I
saying
think that might have been like the most non-metaphorical nail in the coffin I've like ever seen. It was almost like Seth was like trying to decide, and then even if that's not how she meant it, like that's how he heard it, smelt it. 5 things he could touch, 5 things he could see. Like it was like he felt that like it was like a this is how it feels to chew 5 gum. He was like, this is how it feels to be betrayed, and he like went up there and wrote her name down. It was crazy
yeah, yeah,
because both her and Adam said it at the same time. They're both like, no, we didn't betray him.
yeah. Like, what are
And he
you
was like,
talking
I feel like
about?
that would be, I know, I was like, that's something he gets to say, you know, like,
Right,
yeah.
right. You don't say that.
But
I don't know.
that's just the nervous, like, I guess it is what it looks like, but I don't know if it, you know, it's just like, let him say it, you know.
Yeah.
Eek.
But a player of the episode, the Tiki Award, who is that going to? I know who I want to give it to.
I want to go first.
Go.
I want to give it to Amelia. I think that she played a really good round. I think that she like knew exactly where the round was starting off and like what to do with it and where it was going to go. And she like did so well that she made somebody who like could have played an idol and like potentially might should have played an idol not play it. And she's somebody who like has already shown that she knows when to play an idol too. So it's just like all around like idol management queen so far. So I'm gonna give it to Amelia.
George.
I agree. Everything you said.
Good.
Same. That was mine. That was
Oh my
mine too.
gosh. And go.
Yay, Amelia. Has she
Yay,
gotten it?
Amelia.
I think she has actually. I think she may have.
An earlier Tiki,
Yeah.
like an
I'm not
episode
keeping
two.
track at all.
Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. She's over there with
Uh,
like Adele, like, you really liked my album.
I did love Adam's episode. I did
Yeah.
love his arc this episode. I did like seeing him come to life. Um, he's the one that I'm rooting for at this point in the game. Um, Along with a couple of others. I love Allison. I think Allison is playing a beautiful game. She's another really good player at these things. And yeah, those are my two right now. Those are my two that I'm really Allison, great. Allison,
Yeah.
Amelia, and Adam. Those are my three.
Do you have any favorites, Matt?
I would say Zach, Seth, and Amelia. Those are my 3 faves, I think.
It's a good three. That's a good
For
three.
Yeah.
people or favorite players?
Probably players, but also like I like playing with people that I like too. So I feel like that isn't that different for me, but it could be for other people.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very good.
Wait, is this people or players?
Now I'm
Better.
confused. I know. I answered those, so like your turn.
I for this episode, not for the season, because I'm just thinking this episode. Adam. No, I am thinking the season because Topher is still up there. I just really love Topher. I'm the
Yeah.
biggest Topher
He wasn't
stan.
in this episode at
He
all.
wasn't
We
at
didn't see
all.
him.
Yeah.
But I still
Neither
got
was
Topher
Nick.
on
We
the
didn't
mind.
see Nick much.
Yeah, no Nick. Not well, a little bit, but not much.
Hmm.
Uh who else? I obviously love Allison. I love Allison, but I can't choose three. Adam would have to get kicked out because I like Amelia and Callie. And then there's always the person who's going to come back from exile. We don't know who that is.
That's
That's
so
going to
true.
happen on the next episode.
Oh yeah, that's exciting.
It is exciting, and they're going to be so shocked. I can't wait to see
Oh yeah,
their
because they don't even know.
faces. They don't even know.
Is that next
At this
episode?
point, I was like delirious from the sun, and like it was day 2 or whatever, so I was not
Was it,
ears perked, and so this is pretty new for me going forward too.
I think this was day 3, actually.
Damn.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
even worse.
Cool.
What else is that all? Was there any
Let's
I
see.
think
there's stuff
I
those
took
are all my
notes.
notes.
there's stuff that got cut out of this episode that I took some notes on. There was this whole thing where Sandra is freaking out during that strategy talk stuff, and she gets super paranoid, and this is like kind of why TJ has his little chaotic blow up.
Oh yeah.
It was just so much. That part was already so long. I just had to end up cutting this whole thing out because it was just too much. But she goes up to TJ and Seth, and she's like, one of you was lying to me. I want to know which one of you was lying to me, because she had asked them, like, were you
That's
talking
iconic.
about me? She just came up like, are you talking about voting me out, or were you talking about me, or something like that? And they're both like, no. She asked them separately, and they both say no. Or maybe Seth says something different, and she's like, one of you are lying to me. And they both deny lying to her, but really both of them were lying to her. And it
That's
was
so
this
funny.
whole thing. And so it makes her really paranoid. She's mostly just calling out TJ though, but I think it was Seth who was actually lying to her and not TJ. It was this whole thing. And then like TJ brings it up at tribal, and I don't know. This whole chaotic mess of a thing that had to be cut out, but it was just more piling on of like Sandra being paranoid. She probably should have played her idol, and also TJ being messy, and also Seth lying, which is all good stuff to know, because
Yeah.
these are like, continuations of their stories. But that's what got cut out.
It makes me wonder how much stuff like the shot in the darks increased paranoia in those moments, because like you really don't know if like last round Seth would have given his thing to Madison, and if she had Shaylee's or something. Like there's people who like were trying to make bonds that could have just one extra thing, that if they have a friend, then it's a half idol. And like a half idol is actually like crazy.
Right.
So like it makes me wonder how many like things are like, oh well, like let's just not worry about that by not telling Seth. And then the next round it's
Yeah.
like, well now like what if they're all trading their stuff and conspiring to like just tell me what they want to hear and then use an idol on that person. Like there truly is a lot of things where it's like TJ in that moment would probably love to have somebody risk a 50 chance instead of a 0 chance of him. So like there's a lot of things where it makes me wonder if I was in those moments, like, because I know I try to think of everything, and Sandra is definitely. I mean, if you can see an idol that nobody else sees, like you think of stuff that people don't think of, like that's just what my brain
Mm.
considers. And so, like, I just feel it makes me wonder, like, what you're thinking of in those moments when there's extra things that I haven't got to play with. That's just what I'm still wondering about.
Mm.
The only game you played, Matt?
Yeah,
Would you play another one?
I would. I've applied to a few and didn't get in, so now I'm taking a break because now I'm like not in the mood to play one right now, but like maybe in the future. But
So many people who have played Surviving Maine have like been asking me like, how do you get on other LRGs? Because like they can't get cast, because like
yeah,
on Maine,
there's a
if
lot
you
of people
apply,
who
you're on, like,
there's people
basically.
who play all the time, and I just don't get
Yeah.
how people can't play twice if there's people who play 8 times, and that's just
I
not me thing.
know. I know.
I'm not even.
There's
I don't
a
even have a problem with people who play a lot, but it's just like I don't understand. Like I don't know. Sometimes it's interesting because I like before I played Surviving Maine, I played to a couple other ones, and I got into all of them. And
Hmm.
now since I've won, and I talk about what I learned I need for disability stuff from Surviving Maine, I don't get into any of them. And so I don't even know if it's conscious or if that just like subconsciously causes you to go on a wait list or onto a not list or like stuff like that. But like I've applied to like a good handful now, and I'm just like, well, what is it then? That because there's people who like if you can be a legend by playing a bunch, that means you have to get into more than one. So
Right. Well, it's not just you; it's every other white guy that's been on
oh
Surviving
totally,
Maine.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and I'm like, this is annoying. But
So, oh, it's
It's
so hard to
hard.
be a white man.
Well, it is hard when like I don't want to medically change my body, but I'm a they them person that doesn't want to
I'm
talk more about
sorry.
it. So it is interesting when like you can. There's one game of Surviving Maine where I like try to butch it up a little bit, but then like it's interesting too where like people are like, oh well, like that doesn't actually mean anything because you can't take the girl's spot, and I'm like, okay, but like why not? Like what does that mean? And like why not? You know, like the same way
Yeah.
like if I showed up with my cane, like I'm physically disabled in ways that you consider a lot of women to be less than men anyway. Like I don't even know,
Mm,
you know? So like I don't see the difference in that way. But
mm.
that's just a disability pride month conversation.
Yeah, that's a deeper convo.
Yeah. It's just worth mentioning that people don't want to deal with it instead of considering it. You know what I mean? Like you automatically get put on a list for no interview instead of let's talk about it. I think that's
Mm,
worth challenging.
hmm.
What about you, George? Have you played any recently? I know you played some in the
One.
past, right?
I,
Yeah.
I only played one. I played one. I did all right. I think I got to like seventh place. It was too triggering for me. I don't, I'm not a guy
It's
that,
hard for a lot of
you know,
people.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was bullied in like
Oh shit.
elementary and junior high school, and
Same,
you
same.
know, when there are people that are like conspiring in the corner and you feel like they're
Yeah, it
talking you
brings
down,
up stuff.
I was just like, you know what? I did this. I'm good. I like
Yeah.
watching it. Not for everyone to play. It wasn't. It just was a little too triggering for me because I wanted to just like take my toys and go home. Like I was like,
Hmm.
I'm no, but I did all right. I had fun, and it inspired me to create my own games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah. Well, those are all the notes I have. I don't know if I think we covered a lot.
We did.
Um, for episode 8, we're at our halfway-ish point, a little over the halfway point, right? You
Yes.
said, yeah. Okay.
Over
All
half.
right.
Woo woo.
So we will be back with episode 9 next Tuesday evening after the airing of episode 9.
Bye.
Merge.